Hi, Angela. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I was going through, well, I was going through some of your books, the Bella Santini Chronicles, you call it. Yeah, very colorful covers there. It looks like it's something for children, but it could be a lot more than that. I take it. I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to talking about that. But
So, yes, they're written for ages 8 to 12 or 8 to 14. Um, but I know that the wisdom that is incorporated into it is something I could have used in my 40s or 50s. So it's like um, it's for the child or for your inner child. So,
oh, I follow. I follow. I suspected it was something like that, kind of multi-layered. A child would hear it one way, but an adult could hear it another way.
yeah, and there's a lot of there's different perspectives about how the world works in these books that might not occur to an adult, but a child is more open and willing to see that there's potentially another way of looking at something. Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from and how you got to the point where you decided you're going to write like this?
So I was a victim for the first 54 years of my life. My father was a raging alcoholic, and the anger and just the terror that he brought into our house caused me to see anger as something that no one should experience. So, as a very young girl, I decided at some level, probably subconsciously, that I would never do that to anybody. I wouldn't be like him. And so I very early started repressing anger. What I didn't know is that emotions are information, and they are meant to be expressed. The idea of repressing emotions is something that is handed down generationally, but it is so damaging to either yourself or others that I'm like, my whole mission in this life is to get people to understand what is repressing emotions and how do I unwittingly do that because of what I learned from my parents. And oh boy, how can I shift that?
Hmm. Well, thank you very much for that very honest explanation.
Well, yeah, it's just there are so many consequences to, like, I learned to repress anger. I grew up and married a man who, in his childhood, he learned that anger got you what you wanted. And so his go to was anger.
Hmm.
My go to was judgment of his anger.
Hmm.
So, in that toxicity, it was really kind of a miserable existence.
Yeah. So when did you start writing?
Well, there was this little wildfire in Northern California called the Tubbs wildfire in 2017. And that destroyed the house that my former husband and I lived in.
Okay, I've heard stories like that. Yes,
Yeah.
terrible.
And, for a lot of people, they hear that and their go-to is, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I understand that. And I appreciate it. But at the same time, sometimes tragedy is a good thing.
Mhm.
Sometimes it opens a door. So for me, when the fire happened, I looked at my life and I said, if things can change overnight, like I was a homeowner and then the next morning I was homeless. And if they can change that drastically overnight, am I living the life that I choose to live? And that line of questioning led me to realize that I was I was suborning I was suborning myself and my needs to what my husband or my kids wanted and needed, and I had no voice. So by leaving, it was the first time that I ever chose myself over someone else. And if the fire did not happen, I would not have made that decision.
No, because that's a difficult decision to make, and it can be viewed as selfish or something, but in your explanation, I can understand. I can certainly understand what made you do that.
Yeah.
What was the first book you wrote then?
So the first one was Bella Santini in the Land of Everlasting Change. And because the repression of emotions, one of the things that as an adult I realized was that my father drank to escape a feeling that he wasn't good enough that was instilled in him by his father. And so I could see this thread of generational trauma passed down through families because of repressed feelings. And so basically, in the first book of Bella Santini, it really goes into the energy of feelings and how you can get through even painful feelings. But it's all wrapped up in a fairy tale. So it's not like a didactic, you must do this, this, this. It's just like, oh, maybe this works. Oh, maybe that works.
Getting messages like that across to children, you said 8 to 12 years old? Yeah, that can't be easy. How did you manage to encode your messages into the words that a child would be able to understand?
Well, different scenes would occur to me. So for instance, I think it's the ninth chapter of the first book. The main character ends up in an alternative dimension because she went to the Fey world and it's not, like real, the real Earth. So she ends up in this alternative dimension, which is peopled by emotions.
Okay.
And so you could bump into sadness in this, you could bump into deep sadness, depression in this world. And you had to figure out how to get through to move on to where you needed to go in her case it was to complete a quest.
Right.
So the discussions around, okay, how do we get around this sadness with breath work, with EFT tapping, with different techniques, rather than it being a lesson for the kids, it's presented in a way that they can put themselves in that situation and then they can try those tools and see how. And when I finished writing the first book, I thought, wow, if I read that book when I was 10, I would have a deeper understanding of emotions and I would not have made the choices I made.
Well, it's good that you discovered that. Some people live their whole lives never even coming close to any of those kind of thoughts.
Yeah.
So you got to pat yourself on the back for that one. That's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah. How long is that book?
It's about 230 pages.
Sure. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how has it been received?
So it's been well received in some measures and less in others. So I have on that book, I've received the gold medal Mom's Choice Award.
Okay. Great.
I received the Golden Wizard Book Prize.
Hmm.
I received the Four Season Book Prize, and the list goes on. There's a lot of prizes I've won, people recognizing the value of that work. And on the other end, on Amazon, if you look, every review is 5-star. I think there's 2 4-star, the rest are 5-star review.
Okay.
And still sales have not been predictable.
Okay. Well,
So
sales and being received are two different things I've learned.
yeah.
Besides going on podcasts, what else have you done? Have you done book signings, readings for children, groups of children, libraries and stuff like that?
You know, the first book came out in the midst of COVID.
Right.
So there were no author visits, there were no book signings, or none of that. So with the third book, when it came out, I did a live release at an event and did book signing. But that I'm now setting up my website to do school visits and give teachers the information, because when you think about it, it's the emotional reaction to what people do around you
Mm-hmm.
that causes conflict and other things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And when you understand your emotions and you have the tools for going through them, you don't have to choose into conflict.
Yeah.
So I can see teachers having value in the things that I put forth in the books.
Mm-hmm. Right. What part of the United States do you live in?
I live in Taos, New Mexico.
Okay. And that's a big enough city for these type of things to go on, or do you have to travel? Do you foresee yourself having to travel?
Taos is like a small town.
Yeah, I live in a small town. Not much going on here.
Yeah, I'm used to mid-sized cities, so it was quite an adjustment to move to small town Taos,
Sure.
where I have to drive 90 minutes to go to Trader Joe's, or
Okay.
yeah, because
Me, it's
there's
only
none here.
an hour to Halifax, but I ask that because if you want to get involved and do readings, then a small town you can probably do that in a weekend. And then where do you go? You have to leave and then drive around. Some people that I interview actually fly around the states and they just spend a lot of money promoting their books. It can
Mhm.
get fairly costly, right?
It can get very, very costly. So with my books, I figure I have spent about $30,000 per book
Wow.
of my own money.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to get them out. I know that it's of value to children and their parents. So my big vision is that parents read the book to their kids,
Yeah.
because then both of them can gain the knowledge.
Well, let's hope that doesn't go away and it still remains something that parents want to do with their children. I read to my son all
And
kinds
I
of
read to
books.
my son,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it shows. I can see the benefit of that for sure. I hope that more parents are doing that. Younger parents are sticking with that. So we talked about the first book, the Bella Santini Chronicles. Let's move on
Mhm.
to the second book. How does that relate to the first one? Is it a continuing story or a different
It is
story
a
altogether?
continuing
Okay.
story, kind of like Harry Potter, in that, there's more adventures down the road. So in the second book, um, it's kind of a book of self-discovery, where Bella learns who she really is by the end of the second book. And there's a whole backstory to that. So I'm not going to go into it in this particular podcast, but um, there's there's conflict that enters the land of everlasting change, and this war is set up by the queen's evil sister. And so she's trying to wrest power. She brings the trolls in as her minions to attack the fairies. And in this conflict, it gets kind of hairy at the end, but in at the end, Bella finds out who she really is. So the next book is called Princess Bella Visits the Dragon's Lair. And as it turns out, she isn't the human she thought she was. She is the crown princess of the Fey world.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see the twist there. Yes. Discovering your identity. Yes. Very
Yes.
good. It's very good for children to understand what identity is. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially in today's world. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, it sounds really charming. Are you competing with other writers for children's books? Is that a big business? I don't know
It's a
anything about
huge
it.
business, and there's a twist that has come in that people are putting, pretty crap books on Amazon, written with AI,
Oh no.
and it floods the market, and so it's harder for a book that's written with heart to stand out.
Yeah.
And so, it's an interesting process for me to figure out, okay, how do I write that book description so that it really draws the people in to want that book? What keywords do I use? And it's
Hmm.
been a learning process for me, for sure.
Yeah. These books, these three books, uh, what does it look like inside? Meaning, is it just words, pages of words after page? Sometimes children's books for children that are younger, it's just a few lines with a big picture of a dog or a flower or something. Turn the page, and
Right.
you can read it in, an adult could read it in a minute. But is yours an actual book?
It's a chapter book.
Chapter book, yeah,
Yeah. So each chapter starts with a picture, an full page
for
illustration,
sure.
and then somewhere in the middle of the chapter, there's another full page illustration. So it allows the child to imagine
Yes,
what's going on. When it's just words, their imagination um, will be inspired to, dream up what it looks like. But sometimes it helps to have a picture.
for sure, sure. And who does your graphics for you?
My friend Whitney Nixon, and she lives, where is she? I don't know. Somewhere back east. Um, she started with the first book and has done amazing work. So between each book, there's usually 24 illustrations. It's been fun to see the character grow.
Well, of course, your book covers are in color. Would the illustrations inside the book be in color as well?
So I think in the Kindle version, they are in color, but in the print book, they are black and white.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I released a book with colored pictures, and I wanted the best quality paper, the best quality,
Mhm.
and then of course that shot the price of the book way up. So
Yes, it
yeah,
does.
so no one's buying it, but it's a nice book. I don't know, but anyway. Um, yeah, that's a nice story. I guess you're going to continue on for a fourth book, or what do you have in mind?
I have the illustrations for the fourth book, so I'm nearly ready to put that one into publishing.
Okay, super.
Yeah.
So you're recognizing from your own personal life and just from living a life and getting to the age that, we're at, we look back and we say that I do the same thing. If I could hold the hands of a young John, and tell him what I know now, how much better, I wouldn't have made mistakes. But of course, life would be different. We all go through that. So when you're writing a book specifically for that age group, you're addressing a particular potential difficulty or problem or issues that children face as they're looking at us adults and seeing that they're going to become adults one day, and you want to teach them something. How many different types of subjects can you cover, and how many more books like this do you think you can write?
I know that there's a sixth in potential, over in
Cool,
potential land.
cool. Yeah.
But because I'm also writing the fifth right now. So
Mhm.
I know the fifth does not come to an end of everything, that there will be another one. But in each book, there are different themes.
Yes.
So there's bullying, there's child abandonment, there's bigotry,
Hmm.
there's sibling rivalry with
Right.
the queen and her sister. And so because of the different perspectives about emotions and how to deal with emotions weren't taught to me, they weren't taught to any of us in school. um, so I wrote a parent's guide within each book
Oh,
that
cool.
talks about the themes and helps them understand how these perspectives help their child and themselves view the world in a way that empowers them.
Wow. Wonderful. I
Thank
love
you.
it. Great. Well, for just a brief moment, let's move away from the Bella Santini series. There's a few other books that you have been part of, but one in particular that catches my attention is the Self-Love Journal, a 90-day journey into self-love.
So that is journaling prompts, basically, to help someone see themselves from the perspective of their accomplishments or their wishes, or so that they can get an idea of who they really are, because so many of us are layered with perspectives from other people that tell us who they think we are.
Yeah.
And that
Oh, that
isn't
happens far too often. Yes.
right. And it's really a reflection of who they are and how they view the world.
Hmm.
And so rather than us taking in those other people's perspectives, this journal helps us to hone in on who we really are and come to the understanding that we're really a good person
Mm.
and worthy of our own love. And there is a fullness of love that in most people's life, the closest thing is the love for a child
Mm.
or the love for a pet,
Oh, yeah.
because those are the closest to what is called unconditional
Unconditional love.
love.
Yeah.
And that is what love really is.
Right.
In my former marriage, I had the condition that my husband would treat me well. And he never met my standards of what
Hmm.
was treating me well. And so my love was very conditional in that marriage. In my current marriage, I feel so safe and I feel so accepted that I have no conditions. And that is what true love is, where you can say, I love you, and I don't need to have anything back from you. I just the love is there regardless, which is why I talk about love for child.
Hmm.
Most parents, I know when my son was born, that was the first time I really knew a love where it didn't matter what he did, it wasn't going to change how I felt about him.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Do you have a spiritual aspect to yourself that comes across in your writings?
Yeah. Yes, I am a soul embodied person, which means that there's no disconnect from my soul, who has experienced many, many lifetimes and has very much wisdom from that. And I, as an embodied person, I have access to that wisdom.
Mm, well said. I like that.
Yeah, I like it too.
Now, your name appears on a few other books where you're a contributor amongst other writers. What are they about?
So every book that I take part in, those anthology books, I think there's 7 of them I'm in. Um, I know the last book, Guerrilla Education, where I talk about the power of story to convey education. And so I think, that's a really good book that connects with my brand. But all of the books are basically self-help books. So
Okay.
reading my chapter in any of them will give you some insight into human behavior.
Oh, I love stories about human behavior. It's fascinating to watch. Again, especially these days.
Yeah,
You mentioned to me in the pre-chat that you have a YouTube channel. What's that all about?
it's about me sharing the wisdom that I've received from my experiences in this world in hopes that others can perhaps see life differently or make choices. So on YouTube the other day, I made a comment on a friend's video, and another person reacted to my comment with further questions. So if you're saying that you don't need protection in the world, then why do bad things happen? If I'm crossing the street and hit by a car, am I the creator of that reality? And so I created a YouTube video that answers those questions, those like, why does God allow these bad things to happen kind of questions. Um, from a soul perspective, our souls want to grow. They want to gain more wisdom and grow to a higher frequency or vibration. And so sometimes our soul brings in different situations that cause us to perhaps take another path, like the fire in my life.
Yes.
So, or if I was hit by a car, I wouldn't necessarily be in the hospital blaming the driver. I would be in the hospital saying, okay, okay, God, you know, why am I called to Legh in this situation? What am I supposed to learn from this? And it's looking at our situations instead of choosing the victim perspective, which puts blaming someone else is putting yourself in that victim energy,
Yeah.
but choosing to say, okay, there's something for me in this. I want to mine into that wisdom so that I can share that wisdom and be a blessing to humanity.
Hmm. Well, I totally agree with you. And I've been in that situation lying in a hospital, and
Mm,
that's the direction I chose to go myself. So I guess people like you and I, we just naturally go that way, despite whatever hardships we come from. Hardships will come. They'll still happen.
right.
You're still going to have hard times in the future. You're not in utopia yet, you know?
Right. And hopefully we'll get there.
That's right. We can do the best we can while we're here with the one life we know for
Oh,
a fact
boy.
we're having.
And really just having graciousness
Mhm.
and understanding that everybody's doing the best they can with the tools that they were given.
Yeah.
And Yeah. So instead of blaming and pointing fingers and saying he did that,
Yeah.
understand that your reaction to what he did, when you can take responsibility for that and say, okay, he did that and I reacted this way. I'm in charge of my own reaction. That's the responsibility I need to take. And once you take that responsibility, boom, you're out of victim energy.
Yeah. Wonderful. You also mentioned you have a website. You want to
I
talk about that?
do. AngelaLegh.com. Yeah. And it basically it shows you about the Bella books, because those are my main mission. It teaches kids about emotions. There's a parenting tab that takes people to parenting resources, because that unconditional love that we talked about um, is not only important for yourself, for you to unconditionally love yourself, but also as a parent, it's very important that you tap into that aspect of love. And
Mm.
so that website is really giving parents tools to see their kids in ways that help them
Yeah.
because
Sounds
you know
great.
it's
Sounds
it's
great.
hard when you have a sullen 13-year-old teen
I
who
bet.
yeah, who is in conflict with you, and
Yes.
sometimes you need to tap back into that beautiful 3-year-old that they were.
Yes. Yes. I can relate to that. Now, before we wrap up, I'm going to ask you if you want to do a pitch for your books. Do you want to give that a try?
From someone who experienced 54 years of bullying, who experienced overcoming adversity through a wildfire and other things, wouldn't you want your child to have that wisdom? Wouldn't you want your child to have the ability to choose to respond rather than react to the world around them? If you do, you can learn it in the Bella Santini Chronicles.
And there's more to come. 4 or 5 and even 6. Who knows after that?
Yeah, who knows after that?
Yeah.
Well, there may be a spin-off into another character, because
Sure.
in book 4, an interesting character showed up. So
Well, it sounds like we should get together when you got some more stuff to talk about as you
I would
continue.
love that.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
would be great. So next fall or whenever my next season is, you're welcome back at any time, Angela.
Thank you so much, John.
All right.
That's wonderful.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on.
And it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. If you like what I do here on Tell Me About Your Book, then please consider hitting that like button and leaving a comment. You can also subscribe and ring that bell, because I release 2 episodes per week, one on Wednesdays and one on Saturdays. And if you are an author, I would love to hear from you. Until such time, keep on writing and be kind to one another.